hear me all right? A few nods or waves? Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to try something today, which is going to be a bit different. I'm going to try and actually present some slides at the same time. I'm using two laptops, and it's going to be a bit like Glastonbury online, but hopefully without the problems. So we're just going to try that, if I may. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Hopefully that's starting to work. That's good. I'll leave Adam to do anything magic with that. You can see that slide? I now can't see you, so I'm just hoping that's the question. Yeah, that's lovely. Oh yeah, from the family. The other thing we're trying, just like Glastonbury, I've got two screens streaming here. We've got another one in the other room. So if the quality is not very good, I do apologise. There's only so much you can get out of the bandwidth. But anyway, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see the church family. I've managed to get you all on the screen as well now, so that's really lovely. And it's a real honour to talk to you today on the subject of culture, and particularly serving culture. Now, and this is obviously the third part of the series on culture. And I think the reason why we need to have teaching on culture is it's a bit of a weird topic. It's very hard to define. What you've heard so far, you've heard from Nathan and from Richard, and I think we need that. We need different voices expressing the same concepts, because culture is just a fluffy term. But before we get too far, I know a lot of you like a title, and Heidi's particularly like, because she likes to write it down on the top of her journal. So the title for this week's message, part 3, culture, is a serving of fish. I know it's a bit of a weird title, but I think hopefully that'll make sense later on. So the title's a serving of fish. And just so what is culture and why should we talk about it? So as I said, Nathan defined it as the environment. Nathan defined it as. Sorry, my screen's moved. Nathan defined it as the environment, language, and behaviours we create every day. So it's about us and about what we do, but it's about what we do when no one's looking, as well as when people are looking. It's what you do. It's what you do. It's what you do. It's all around us. And one of the definitions so the Merriam-Webster dictionary uses terms like customary beliefs and social forms and shared attitudes, and it also goes on to talk about learning and transmitting messages, transmitting knowledge. And I think that's important too, because culture is something that's passed on. It's passed on from generation to generation. It's passed on from person to person. And just like those Chinese whispers, if you're not careful, you can get the message lost in translation. So you do need to keep going back to the reasons why you have your culture as it stands. The word culture actually comes from the Latin cultura, and that's probably the best definition you're going to get, because it's around to cultivate. And so like a gardener, it's like an ecosystem. And for those keen gardeners, I can see John's there. I know he's very fond of his garden. But for those keen gardeners, you know how important it is to maintain the garden. If you keep all the different bits and pieces together and balanced, you have a beautiful garden. And if like us, you have some voracious rabbits or some other problems, your whole ecosystem goes into chaos, and you can get a real imbalance, and your culture just goes awry. So I think where we're looking for is this balanced culture where you've got clear vision of where you're coming from, and you nurture that like you would as a gardener. And we have a family culture in this household. We have a family culture. We do things in a certain way. At work, we have a culture. We have a British culture, maybe. So some of the terms that we use when I'm speaking to my Indian colleagues at work, they have no idea what we're talking about. It's just strangeness about the British culture. We have the church culture, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. And somebody, Richard mentioned last week. Richard mentioned the phrase "culture eats strategy for breakfast." It's by the Austrian business philosopher and expert Peter Drucker, and he said basically, culture overcomes everything else. Even if you've got a strategy, you've got a plan and a mission and everything else. If your culture is different to that, and you haven't bought into the vision and the mission, you will drift off. So again, back to the fact, it's very important to have your culture focused. Just as an aside, because I was looking up about Peter Drucker, Peter Drucker actually said as well, he said, the two most difficult jobs in the world are these: one, the President of the United States, and two, to be the leader of a church. Because he said, a church where you start it, then lead it, and to serve others in greatness. He actually quoted that when he was talking to Rick Warren. And so I think, just before we go too far, thank you, Richard and Esther, for setting up this church, for doing such a great job, for growing this church. Look at all these people on this screen. Who'd have thought this all these years ago when you left South Africa with very little? So I think we should respect the people that have tried to set this culture and this vision. And as we go forward, just remember how hard that work is. I'm just going to try the next slide. See if that works. Hang on, we're nearly there. Right. So, slight change in plan, but from thinking of a family culture and the place where culture and family come together. When was the last time you went to a wedding? Do you want to put something in the chat? I know some people went to a wedding fairly recently. And what was it you remember about that? What was it you saw? What was it that stood out to you about that wedding? So, Danny and Kimberly, yesterday, yeah, my wedding. Adam, you went to your own wedding. That wasn't so long back either. Seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? 5 years ago. Okay, and what stood out? What was anything that sort of a memorable moments from those weddings? Because I think what you get, there's something special about a wedding. You know, wedding is a time when the families come together, and there's something special. I remember at our wedding just standing there and thinking, everybody's here because they care about us, and that was really quite special. And people serve in various ways at a wedding. Everything from preparing the wedding invitations, from setting up the church, from laying out the chairs, from making the food, from doing the flowers. Heidi's recently done some flowers for a friend's wedding, and the care and attention she put into that, because she cared about how it was going to be, and the fact that it's a one-off, it's a one day. You don't just do these things. It's that wedding is for one day. That person's whole wedding experience is that one day. So everybody goes that extra mile. And I was thinking that and you also have the little family traditions as well, little strange things that some people do about maybe how they do the speeches or how they greet each other. You tend to have different family traditions too, but it is one-off, and people are so much more attentive at a wedding than perhaps they are at a church, at a work meeting, let's say, or going to Tesco's or whatever it might be. You know, you put so much more emphasis on that because of the importance and the special relationship with that behaviour. So what is our culture? Do you want to pop again, if you can? Do you want to pop anything in the chat? What is the culture of Fields Church? We're a church and we have a culture. Come on, everybody, get typing. What do you think your culture is? What are some values? Richard mentioned some last week, which I'm going to talk about in a short while. Love for God and for people. Yes. Thanks, Charles. Don't get the keyboard wet. Heart for God and heart for people. That's really nice. Inclusivity and love. Those are really nice values. Interestingly, I think Jesus probably said those same things to people. Family. That's lovely. So, yes, our vision is heart for God and heart for people, and what we've been doing with that is, you know, obviously God first, focus first on God, but also God's focus, God's love is for people. Just at the wedding, you know, the families it's all about love, isn't it? It's that the families are looking after each other and caring for each other. And if you think our foundational verse in Matthew 6:33 is, seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That means, if we keep our focus on God first, number one, commandment number one, this reading from Matthew, if we just keep focused on God, we can't go wrong. But by doing that, you can't help but love others and want to have a heart for people. It just flows. We've got some lovely words there: loving culture, caring culture. So I'm glad to see some people have read my slides in advance. That's really nice. So I'm going to look at some of the points that Richard made last week. I'm going to sort of whistle stop through them. But this culture is in our DNA, and I wanted to just make sure that you remember that this culture is our, well, we use the term like North Star. It's the way you guide yourself. Every time you have to make a small decision, you can make a decision based on that culture. Is this going to honor somebody, or is this going to be bad for them? Is this going to help somebody or not help somebody? So if I look at this first one, so loving, so that's what we're looking for in one another. This is the central theme of, not just Fields Church, but for God. God is love. I've got a small reading from 1 Peter 4:7-11, which I'm just going to read out. I don't think I told Angela we didn't need to put them in the chat, so I'm just going to read it out. It's a bit of a long one, but it's 1 Peter 4:7-11. I'm going to do this because it covers off 4 or 5 of the points Richard made. So it says, serving for God's glory, and it says, but the end of things is at hand. Therefore, be serious and watchful in your prayers. And above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. As each one has received a gift, minister it to one another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. If anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If anyone ministers, let him do it as with the ability that God supplies. And in all things, God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belong the glory and the dominion forever and ever. Amen. It's an awesome prayer in 1 Peter 4:7-11. I can't help recommending that enough. Have a read back through that again. Love is at the center of all this, and it covers a multitude of sins. I think we have to remember that, because we're not perfect. We want a culture that's welcoming. We talked about hospitality, and if you've ever come to Fields Church, you'll know we're a hospitable church. It's a church that runs on its stomach, but not just that. It's the welcomes, it's the hugs, it's the smiles as you come through the door, it's the coffee, and it's that fellowship, and it's something at the center of this church. I think that's what makes it a family. Family is together. It is just being together and doing things together. One of Richard's points last week as well was embraces change. I put this one in because this is an interesting one. I don't know whether people necessarily think of this, but we're a living church of the living God. Jesus was the new wine of the new covenant from God. He was also the new Adam. He's taking us to a new Jerusalem. It was all about change and new. So we're also told to put on the new self. So in Ephesians 4:24, it talks about the new self as well. We should change our bodies. We should transform to be more like Jesus day on day. So we're on a journey, and we can't be on a journey and stay still. You have to embrace change. You have to keep going forward. We also talked about empowering people, and the church isn't about a single person other than Jesus Christ. So, and the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 12:12-27, we're all parts of one body, and that all are important. I won't go through the whole reading, but 1 Corinthians 12:12-27. Yeah, so we're all parts of that body, and you need everybody, because I couldn't be doing this now without Adam running the YouTube channel. Thank you, Adam, for doing that, as well as helping keep this flowing. Angela's keeping these spotlights and little chats going in the chat, so thanks for that, Angela. You're keeping that going well. I can't sing. not that's why this muting is brilliant. I love to sing, I just can't sing very well. So Danny and Kimberly, that was lovely to hear you today. Richard, awesome with the church news, and it's just nice to share the load, but also people bring their different skills. People bring that without that variety. I'm lost a bit when it comes to some of this creativity stuff. I mean, these slides Danny's put together for me, and I did do some slides, but they just don't look anything like as nice as the ones Danny's done. He's just got a gift of creativity, and so God's given him that gift to use. So I think we should always remember that everybody's got a part to play. We're a diverse group of people, but that's the best. The best teams, the best groups are always the ones with a diverse group of people. If you're all the same, you have a very dull life and a very dull church. So that leads us on to embracing creativity. We haven't got to properly to serving yet, but you'll see this is all leading to serving. It's all about serving, isn't it? So creativity and change, well, they go together. You know, you need not only this artistic creativity, but you also need this vision, the imagination, and solving problems, solutions to problems. And if you think about it, we're created in God's image, and God is the creator. He created everything. If you just need to read Genesis, I know Heidi's been reading Genesis in her Bible plan. She's been reading it for what seems like months because it's a big book. But almost, there's so much creation goes on in that. It's not just the first few days. It's this everything is created within that book. So we are creative. We create, and that's also we resolve problems. We solve. We think about things as we go. Encouraging people. This was number 6 on the points Richard made. So we all know how motivated we feel when someone encourages us. In Hebrews 10:24-25, it says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds." That's serving. Not giving up meeting together, that's church, as some are in the habit of doing, but encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Back to the wedding, it's a day. It's a day. We need to be working towards the goal, God's final day of arrival. We can't just say, oh, we'll put that off, or it's not important. If it's important to God, it's important. We should be going the extra mile. We should be encouraging each other to come to church. We should be encouraging each other to come to life group. We should be just motivating each other to do good works, to get out into the community. I mean, Karen's got such a heart to reach out to her neighbours and friends. We want this. We need to encourage and motivate and support these people. Caring. Well, that again, that leads on. So this was point 7 that Richard mentioned. So caring. This is the loving and caring are intertwined. In John 13:34-35, it says, "A new command I give you: love one another, as I have loved you. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." This is from Jesus, obviously. "By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Love is the center of the Bible, isn't it? It's there. It's intertwined through the Old Testament, through the New Testament. It's intertwined through everything that Jesus did. And if you love and if you care, then you need to accept, because people aren't perfect. I don't know if you've noticed. Some people, obviously not myself, but other people are not perfect. And so what do? You come across, we were having this discussion the other day, if someone has done something that needs forgiveness, do you hold on to that unforgiveness, or do you forgive? Do you welcome people in that are not like you? Back to that diverse thing. Do you welcome people in who are struggling or broken? And the Bible is so clear about this, that we should accept everybody. In fact, in Romans 15:7, it says, "Accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God." We should just accept everybody. And why shouldn't we? Everybody's been made as a child of God. They're all our brothers and sisters. Would you let your brother and sister just sit on the street with no food? Would you would you let your brother and sister just be in turmoil mentally or physically? No, you wouldn't. You would support them. So those are the 8. And then, although Richard mentioned these, he didn't sort of list these last week. But I'm just going to call these out, and we've already mentioned it today. So a praying church at the centre of our culture is prayer. I obviously I mentioned it earlier on in the 1 Peter 4 reading, but we are called to love and to pray. Prayer is at the centre of everything we do. Before we met this morning, we prayed. Then Richard prayed before Danny and Kimberly sung. Then Danny and Kimberly prayed before they sung. Then Richard prayed before I spoke. And then we'll pray again at the end of the service. We're praying tonight. We've all prayed. I've prayed like crazy this morning because I'm stepping out and doing something I'm uncomfortable with. Prayer is there. It's a support mechanism, but it's also an amazing opportunity to just talk to God. And how else can you have a relationship if you don't keep talking? So yes, prayer, thankfulness. These go so hand in hand. I remember Jane talking about this a long time ago. But thankfulness. We need to remember where we've come from, what we've got. In Colossians 3:17, it says, "And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to the God the Father through him." Whatever we do it for the glory of God. It's there. It's if you do it with a loving heart, but just remember who it's for and why it's for. Generous and sacrificial is the next one. We're told to be generous, to give, but not out of necessity, but out of love. Acts 20 sums this up really well. Acts 20 verse 35 says, "I have shown you in every way by labouring like this, that ye must support the weak, and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive." We should be giving. We should be sacrificing. And sacrificing, I think people think, oh, it's money, but it's not always money, it's time as well. For me, time is so valuable. We all seem to be busy. So giving up time can be just as beneficial. Lending things to people, giving up your house. I don't know, letting people come stay in your house, whatever it might be. We should be generous, but as it says elsewhere in the Bible, we should be cheerful givers. And then serving. I've made this number 12. I think a dozen seems like about the right number of values for now, but there are hundreds. There are literally hundreds of values for this church and for a culture. There'll be one about honesty, integrity. There's probably values of others as well. But I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But we're going to dig into this point of serving. So I gave you the title of a serving of fish, and I wonder what came to mind. I'll give you just a moment. Have a think. What does a serving of fish? What if I was to ask you? What do you think? What do you think the next slide is going to contain? What do you think we're going to talk about? You can put it in the chat if you like. Mark's typing away. I think he's leaned forward. He's in for it. Fish and chips, nice. I have to say, I'm doing a talk about a serving of fish. We are a vegetarian household here, so no fish. Nice, Mark. You've read my script. Chips too, please. Go, Steve-O. Right, we'll move on. So, a serving of fish. Did you think we were going to get a meal delivered to you on your lap? A nice silver service meal delivered to you. You just sit there, it's brought to you, beautiful. Or did you see yourself as the one that was going out in the wet and windy night to catch the fish before preparing it, spending hours cooking it, deboning it, descaling it, everything it that you have to do with fish? Did you see yourself spending a time cooking it and preparing the things that went beside it? Did you see yourself carrying it to somebody who needed it? Did you see yourself doing that? because that's the serving of fish that I was thinking of. I wasn't thinking of it delivered to you on a plate. I was actually thinking of the process of which you have to go out. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because you start to wonder where this is your focus, isn't it? It's where your focus. So it's not a quick takeaway. We're not talking about a quick takeaway here. We're talking about care and attention. We're talking about hard work. We're talking about effort. And so I want to, if you've got a pen and paper, can you write these 2 sentences down? I think this is going to sum up everything I'm going to talk about today. Love to serve and serve for love. Love to serve, serve for love. So we are a serving church, and we love to serve. It was the first thing I think Heidi and I saw. Well, the hospitality was the first thing we saw when we came to church for the first time, when we got hugged and welcomed, hands shaken, and coffees put in our hands. But the other thing we saw was how many people were moving chairs and getting things sorted, welcoming us in. Just there was a lot of people involved, and I don't know whether you realise, but even on a normal Sunday service when we used to meet, it was between 30 and 40 people would be serving. 30 or 40 people out of a church of less than 100 that were there. So why love to serve? Let's start with that. So any of us can just do a job, a task that's been given to us. So at a wedding, that might just be putting out the chairs, or let's say driving the bride to the church. But do you just do that out of duty? I mean, are you required to do that? Like, are you being paid to drive someone to the church, or are you like a family member who's lovingly, brought your pride and joy car out to take someone there? And while I was researching this, I came across this amazing story. Whether it's apocryphal or not, I don't know, but the story is about Sir Christopher Wren, so the architect who designed St. Paul's Cathedral, and he used to visit the site regularly, obviously as the architect, and apparently he was visiting the site and he came across 3 labourers. They were all doing the same sort of stonemason task, and he asked each of them what they were doing, and the first one said, "I'm cutting the stone." They didn't recognise Sir Christopher Wren, because although he was the man who'd architected the building, he didn't regularly go there, and they didn't all know him. Obviously, there's thousands of people working on it. So the first man says, "I'm cutting the stone." The second man says, "I'm earning 3 shillings 6pence a day." And the third man said, "I'm helping Sir Christopher Wren build this cathedral." I've read another account where it says, "I'm building something for God, like a chapel for God," or something like that. And they're all correct. Someone is cutting stone. Somebody is getting paid. So someone's doing a job. Someone's earning a living. But someone's actually caught the vision of building a cathedral, and they see the small part they've made in that. I mean, there's a similar story about John F. Kennedy talking to a cleaner at NASA. Whether the story is true or not is just an abbreviation or some sort of strange thing from this. But the idea is that John F. Kennedy speaks to the cleaner and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." What are you doing? Are you sweeping the floor to put a man on the moon, or are you sweeping the floor because someone's paying you $6 a day? So the wedding car, let's think if it's let's say the bride's uncle bringing the bride to church in his vintage Rolls Royce that he spent the last of the winter all getting it ready for this day. He's so much more invested into this. He's so much more motivated, so much more attentive, probably more generous in his time and the effort and money, and it's all done for love. You know what I mean? So we should definitely remember why we should definitely love to serve, and we should definitely serve for love. So let's have a look at 2 quotes here. So we should love because he does. We should serve because he does. He says, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his ransom for many. Jesus came to serve. He said it, and Richard mentioned it as well. In fact, Richard preached my message a little bit at the start there, because Jesus is the ultimate servant, and he told us all to be the servants of others. And also we should serve because we should. It says here, we should be enthusiastic to serve the Lord, keeping your passion towards him boiling hot. This is the Passion Translation, actually. Passion towards him boiling hot. Radiate with the glow of the Holy Spirit and let him fill you with excitement as you serve him. Are you just sweeping the floor, or are you putting a man on the moon? Are you just chipping away at a piece of stone, or are you building an amazing cathedral for God? You know, we should want to do this, and we should remember that we're doing it not for somebody else, but for God. So Mark preempted my next bit, because I was going to talk a little bit about, I'm not sure about the time because my clock's gone. But I love this graphic. So I'm going to pause here for a second. We just got to look at this amazing picture that Danny's put together. I want this as a poster. It's just so clever. So in Matthew 14, we have the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And in verses 15 to 16, I'm just going to read these couple of verses here. It says, when it was evening, the disciples came to him, this is to Jesus, and said, this is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves. And Jesus said to them, they need not go away, because remember, Jesus was feeding them the word. He was feeding them truth and teaching and healing them as well. So they need not go away. You give them something to eat. Well, he probably, maybe he wasn't quite so rude. I don't know, maybe he was. And it made me think, because the disciples, they cared. They obviously cared about the people because they wanted them to get some food. But their faith about how they were going to solve the problem was limited, and they were fishermen. And have you ever thought about how much faith fishing takes? If you think about a shepherd, you go out and you have your sheep in the field, and you just you pen them up, and maybe you get your sheepdog or your crook, and you just push them around. When you go out fishing, you go out and you throw a line or a net off your boat, and you hope. Fishing is a very much more faithful, hopeful activity. You really don't know. You go into the water, you try for optimum conditions, but really you are literally fishing around in the dark, trying to find the odd fish that might be in the water. You're assuming there is. I've heard stories of people fishing in lakes where there's no fish. I know Karen's Chris likes to do magnet fishing. I thought that was to collect magnets, but actually it was using a magnet to find bits of metal at the bottom of a river. But that's the same thing, it's just like fishing up shopping trolleys or whatever it might be. But it's still hoping. You don't know what's down there. You're randomly searching. And so the fishermen, who must have effectively the most faith of any trade, still haven't got any faith in how they're going to feed these people. And they go on to say, we have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes, which is interesting, because actually in John's gospel, in the same parallel translation, he actually says they didn't know that at all. It was the little boy. So in John 9:8-9, the little boy, they said, Andrew spotted him and said, there's a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but what are they amongst so many? So the disciples didn't have anything, but they had eyes. They spotted somebody who did have something. It wasn't much, but it's something. But the fisherman Andrew also lacked his faith, because he didn't really see what Jesus could do, how it could be multiplied, how it could feed 5,000 people. Of course, most of you know that there was a miraculous ending. Jesus did give this. He took the fish and the bread, and he gave thanks, and he fed 5,000 men plus all their families, and with food left over. And it's also interesting that, I don't know whether you're aware, but in the Old Testament, in Kings 4:42-44, Elisha actually does a similar miracle. He actually feeds 100 people with 2 barley loaves, I think it is. But so Jesus is just showing how he can do 50 times more with a lot less bread. With less bread, I think Elisha had more bread actually. if ever you're reading about and you see John 6:14, it goes on about, say, these men had seen that Jesus was truly a prophet because they recognized that he'd done the miracle of Elisha, but many times more. So, I mean, thinking about this situation, and I love the disciples because they are just like me. They're a bit lost, a bit confused. They often get the wrong end of the stick, and they're not as faithful as they perhaps should be. And I feel like that's all of us, really. But what can you offer? Are you like the little boy with the bread? You haven't got much, and it's yours. The little boy gave up his lunch, so he had to sacrifice his lunch. It turned out everybody got fed, so that was all right. But he didn't know that this is the first time Jesus has fed so many people. So I believe we are a serving church, and Jesus has asked us to serve. And there's a world out there that needs love, and serving is a way of giving love to people physically and in other ways. As we move to our new building in the summer, we're going to need to restart a lot of the things we do, and it's going to be actually a bit more complicated. We've got a bigger building with more things to do. We're also going to have new serving roles and just more roles for the same things for the bigger venue. We're also going to try and reach out to the community more. You'll learn more about that. Now we're starting to open up again, so we can start to restart some things. And so, what do you have? Not what do you not have. Don't worry about what you don't have. There's no point saying, "Oh, I haven't got any money." Well, don't worry about money. What do you have that you can give? Like the little boy, he had bread and fish. He didn't have gold. He didn't have a boat. But what he did have, he gave. The disciples were wise because they saw that he had something. They lacked a bit of faith, but that's all right. We all lack a bit of faith. So what do you have that God could bless? And it doesn't have to be much. So I'm just going to say that after this service during the week, we're going to send out, I don't know if you can see this, I've done a little infographic, just like a thing of the serving roles at the church. So I'll be sending this out to people, and even if you don't normally serve at the church, but you're interested, it will tell you a bit about the roles, what they do, and how many people get involved at what sort of times. We really do need to build up all the teams, technical teams. So, we're going to probably have a lighting team now, sound. We're going to welcome probably a car park team now because we're bringing people in off the main road. So we actually want to get more people involved, and actually there's nothing better than serving side by side with other people. It's really inspirational. It's something great about being in the kitchen working, making teas. There's something amazing watching Adam suddenly clip all the wiring together and all the lights come on. There's something great about hearing the band tuning up. The whole thing, the whole experience of bringing church alive is great, but that whole experience of also reaching out into the community. I'm looking out my window. This is the community out here, sorry, on my right. This is the place we should be. So just moving towards the end here. So we're told to love, and in Matthew 5:16 it clearly says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." We're like lighthouses. We're supposed to shine our lights to the community. We're supposed to reach out to these people. We're supposed to reach out to people. It's not about doing the job. It's about doing the job for God with love. Just like at the wedding, it's not just turning up. It's a one day. It's you're doing everything as if it's the last day. If it's the only day, it's the day, and the bridegroom is Jesus. So love to serve and serve to love. Each time you come to do something, just remember who you're serving and why you're serving. It doesn't matter what you do, but it does matter that you do it for the glory of God. And if you don't want to serve, or you don't want to get up early on a Sunday morning, and we get up quite early on the Sunday morning, or you're not motivated or not engaged, well, remember, culture is what you do when no one's looking. It's that essential purpose that drives you. I mean, if you don't really feel it, if you don't get that sense of why, then I think you need to take it to God, and ask, because you need to say, what can I do with what I have, rather than why can't I do this, or I don't want to do this. But just like fishing, or just like the fish, at least, culture can be caught. So what you'll see is that people that come regularly to serve or regularly to help would inspire other people, and they come along, and then they invite others, and that sense of camaraderie, that sense of blessing that you get from working in a small team. Once we've done our wonder events and we get, I don't know, 20 or 30 people standing around in a circle praying before the service, and you realize how many people have made that happen. It's awesome. But when you get a team of 3 or 4 standing out in the car park in the rain, doing a high five, laughing and smiling, or it's still great. You get that same buzz. It really is. It's such a joy. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'd love to say, my daughter there, Frankie, she's helped with vision for quite a while, and she was getting up early, walking to church with headphones on, listening to worship music while she was walking to church. She'd get there right at the start, be setting up all the vision stuff, and then she'd help set up the children's ministry as well, and she'd be helping out wherever she could. She'd help out getting the welcome desk going and everything. We've not asked her to do that. We never asked her to do that. She's just seen us do that, and she's caught the vision. Then now she's inspiring me. It's gone the other way. She inspires me now. When I'm not in the mood, she wants to. She says, "Come on, we got to go to church." I think we're naturally helpers. We all want to help. So, like the faithful fisherman, sometimes you just have to push out into the lake with your net. Okay, you have to try something you've never tried before, and wait patiently for the unfathomable God. I can't even say it now. I got to the end. I'm so pumped to move the fish over for you. Yeah, because you might be fishing in the dark and you might just not find anything. It might just not work. But why not try it? Why not fish and try out? So be available, be alert, and be patient, because it might take a while, but availability counts for a lot, And if your heart's in it, then you'll definitely do all right. So just to finish off, I hope you enjoy your serving voyage, and if you'd like to know more, please get in touch with Heidi or me, or via hello@fieldschurch.uk. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Hopefully I didn't bore you. And Danny, the slides are amazing. Thanks.